Good afternoon. This is Robert Sin at CEO Technician on X, Goldfinger on CEO.ca. This is Goldfinger Capital, and I'm with Tara Christie, the CEO of Banyan Gold. Banyan is an explorer focused in the Yukon, and the last 5 years has been a whirlwind, going from no resource, no deposit, really, to 7 million ounces today. Yesterday, the company put out some news. I'm going to talk to Tara about that news and what the plans are here this summer. But let's just start out with, you know, Banyan's in the Yukon. It gets cold in the Yukon during the winter. It gets pretty cold. A lot of snow on the ground, a lot of ice. What have you been up to over the last 5 or 6 months?
Well, it's been an unusual year for Banyan because normally we drill through the winter. And, because our property is year round and we're northerners, we're well set up for it, doesn't really slow us down that much to drill in the winter. But this year, I think everybody knows last year was pretty tough for junior miners. We came out with our 7 million ounce resource in February. And then we were like, well, how are we really going to add value right here? And you saw people put out really good drill results and they didn't get a reaction in the market. So for us, our focus has really been refining what we're going to do this year, looking at the key drivers of the economics of this project, the key understanding of our geology, and quite frankly, getting rid of the busy work of drilling, which wasn't really adding values, allowed us to really dig in, talk to a lot of people smarter than us, some of the experts in the field, in the fields that we think can help support us, structural geology, even going back and re-looking at our geophysics and getting a new 3D version put together that links, the known deposit with the geophysical data that we had. All of that's been really interesting. So we've had our heads down digging into the geological data, but we've also been really focused on some high-level scoping studies with some engineers, understanding what the drivers of the economics are for the three processes that we've identified through our metallurgical work. So, we are continuing to work on metallurgy. We know that's something that goes right to the bottom line of your IRR. So it's been a focus. Also understanding, where, when we do drill, we can have our starter pit areas, where we need to put infrastructure, where we'll have to go out and actually drill some holes to test that it's not mineralized so that we can make a real mine plan work. And I think that's really the next phase, is showing that this is an economic project. Yeah, I think we could continue to drill to show that we've got the potential for, way more than 7 million ounces, probably more in the range of 8 to 10 million ounces, which, there's not very many projects in safe jurisdictions, particularly North America, where you've got as big a deposit as we have with existing roads, power, and infrastructure. So, it's been a busy winter. So even though we haven't been making a lot of noise, we've been working pretty hard.
Yeah, when we spoke in October of last year, you made it very clear that you're going to take your time during this off season to really do the planning work, the background work that needs to be done to really build a mine. And you've been doing that. And also, patience can sometimes be a virtue, right? Last October, gold mining stocks were getting no love at all in financial markets. And so why try to do more? Why spend more when it's not being seen by investors and they really, frankly, did not care then?
Mhm.
Fade the scene to today, 6 months later, gold is 24.18 an ounce as I speak these words, right? Banyan share price has been basically flat since last October, which is not a terrible thing, but that could change very soon, especially with this gold price. So we went from low 1800 to last October. The last time I spoke to you, 2400 today. That's a big move for gold price. And it just so happens that here you are, you're about to kick off your big exploration season here this summer. So you put out some news on Thursday morning. Tell us about that and what are the key objectives here this summer?
Well, at the top of the press release, we talk about our drill program, 5,000 meters. And, some people say, well, that's not very big compared to your previous years. again, being patient, but also very, very strategic in the drill holes that we plan for this year. We have some very specific targets and rationales for what we're going to drill this year, which I think will demonstrate the economics and the scale potential of this. This is a very remarkably consistent deposit. You can see that in our sections, the Powerline deposit in particular, horizontal layers. We were adding ounces with every drill hole and just continue to expand it. And it's pretty obvious it's open, to the east, to the south. It's open to the west too, with a little bit more overburden on top of it. So we're not rushing to follow up on that. We are really excited about airstrip. We kind of stopped drilling on airstrip way back in 2019. 2020 was kind of our very last hole on it because we didn't think it was heap leachable. Powerline looked like it had all three optionality. It's 90% of the resource. But looking back at it over the winter, the average grade 0.75, we can see some areas that had some nice long 1 gram intercepts right near surface, which, in a mill or a flotation mine plan, end up in your starter pits because it's on surface, higher grade, which is part of what we're looking for. So we're taking another look at that. We'll be putting some holes into airstrip. It's open and it's open at depth as well. So excitement there because I think you can see the potential to grow Powerline. We can know that we can add ounces at airstrip. We've got a few other targets as well. We'll be doing a modest program out at our Nitra property. Really, we also get one of those government grants or hope to. So that really helps with some of that baseline exploration. We know there's some intrusions out there. Victoria Gold has the Gold Dome deposit that's just south of our property boundary, and it's a known intrusion-related gold deposit in metasedimentary rocks, or not deposit, actually, it's not a deposit yet, it's still just mineralization, but I think it's pretty similar to what we see at AurMac. So I think it's going to be a great year for us. We spent a lot of time redoing where we might drill, how we add the most value in that. And then the other really valuable work that goes right to the IRR is continuing to do our metallurgy, getting both the recoveries up in that, but also doing work which will potentially reduce operating cost or CapEx cost, understanding where the gold is that we're not recovering. So, if you get 91%, what's left in the tailings and can you get that? Same within the flotation work. And then continued work on the heap leach to really understand if there's a component or a subset of the deposits which leach better and where you could kind of start and do something similar to or have like a heap leach model that starts with a heap leach and then goes to the mill. And then the scoping study work along with that, as we get the metallurgy, we now have models for, the 4 or 5 mining scenarios, heap leach and mill, flotation mill, that we can then plug the numbers in and we can understand what the greatest economic drivers are in those models. So we know where we can optimize it and get higher IRRs. And that's given us a lot of guidance on what we need to focus on this year. And, we're starting to turn our minds. We still have that exploration upside potential. So, there's a little bit of that excitement of discovery, but there's also that excitement of, this is actually a project which, I think about, I would love this to be Yukon's next gold mine and actually move forward and leave another positive legacy in the community of a successful mining project. So starting to build our team and think about it that way. So those are key things. And the other key part of our program is not necessarily really exciting, but continuing our baseline environmental and expanding it so that this project could be moved into permitting very quickly. We have the benefit of 20 years of data from the mine next door, plus all the current data, and we've supplemented with our own baseline data. So, I'm not shy to say that I think that this project could be permitted faster than any in Yukon. And if it's done right, of course, there's some key steps that need to be done. But, lots of projects will get purchased in this gold cycle, and maybe it will be a long-lived cycle, but some of them may not get permitted in it. And I want to make sure that this project is not only an exciting gold resource, but it can actually move forward. So doing all that technical work makes it even more exciting for people to look at because we've done the groundwork, both on the engineering side, the environmental side. So, I think we're in a pretty good place for this gold market.
I heard you say a lot there, and as a longtime shareholder, I'm about the most excited I've been in years, quite frankly. There's a lot there that you just put on the table. Number one, I heard this is going to be a mine. There's a very high probability that this is going to be a mine. Um, you have potential fast track to permitting. I'm not sure what the time frame is, but maybe 4 to 5 years is reasonable.
Yep.
Um, that is significant because there's a lot of juniors out there that have gold deposits that just sit there year after year with a PEA or even a pre-feasibility study, but they don't move forward. But you're committed to moving this forward and making it the Yukon's next gold mine, right? So I heard you say that there's value in that, and there's time value of moving a little faster if you can. I also heard you say you're getting ready basically to produce a PEA at some point in the next year. Talk more about that in a little bit. And then I heard you say you're going to do exploration work. So you're gonna high grade certain core areas of Powerline, but you're going to go back to where you had good results in 2020 to the north, build out that deposit, and then the Nitra property. That's grassroots, right? So that's blue sky that hasn't really been worked on much to date, right? So a lot of different potential value drivers there. Let's start with talking about Powerline
Mhm.
and how are you going to focus on Powerline? Maybe you could share your screen. Where do you plan to drill and what's the objective there?
All right, so let's get into the presentation. I probably won't walk through it unless you think your audience really wants to see
No,
it.
no,
But
let's just skip
here's
to the good stuff.
well, all right. So looking at it, this overview, remember Powerline goes from this top hill right across the screen, off into this blue swoop part over here, and then airstrips right here. And there's a little gap in between. The gap is likely because we haven't drilled it. Airstrip dips underneath to the south, underneath Powerline. And we'll see the 3D model here. Remember we got two mines right beside us. Both of them are growing, starting to cash flow. Hecla's a $2 billion company, so significant. And they did purchase a tack. So wouldn't be surprised if we have interest from both of them as we move this forward. And then, I don't know if you've seen this video, Robert, but this belt, everybody's heard of Snowline out here to the east and Sitka over here. And when you get belts of mineralization, and these intrusion related deposits do generally occur in belts, you get nodes of development. And I like to think we have one node of development that's going to probably be the first mover right around Victoria Gold and Hecla. And that's because we have roads, we have hydropower already on the property. You can access it. Our mineralization's right on surface. There's having existing roads is super important in the permitting process in the Yukon. And that was a challenge that Attack had, not being able to get a road permitted to their exploration projects, which will make it very difficult if you want to get a mining road in. So lots of belts develop that way, whether the Golden Triangle, off at the Red Lake in Ontario, you see where the first mines developed or where the next ones kind of came together sooner. So that's a huge, huge advantage to us. And the Yukon's getting a lot of excitement. And we've explored less than 5% of our property. We have 300 square kilometers. You can see Nitra over here, and our AurMac's 173 square kilometers. And like Raven was a new discovery of Victoria Gold, and they already have a resource of 1.1 million ounces at 1.7 grams. That's high grade. So it shows that, you have some lower grade in these areas, but you can have high grade just a few kilometers away. So I think that actually shows that we have lots of exploration potential on our properties. Gold Dome over here is where Gold Dome's right here that Victoria Gold has, and lots of alluvial mining out on our property out there. So pretty exciting.
If I
At
could just
AurMac,
stop you for a second, I
yeah,
don't think I don't think a lot of people understand the scale of the Ormac property. What is
yeah.
the size of this total? Because I know it's massive, but uh, can you tell us some of those numbers?
So AurMac here itself is 173 square kilometers, but combined with Nitra over here to the west, It's 300 square kilometers. So it's a very large land package. Victoria Gold there to the north, that land package is 550 square kilometers. So these are big land packages. So, there's a reason why they're underexplored. They're big and people just haven't done modern exploration. The fact we made our discovery at Powerline in 2019, right beside a road and underneath a power line, is kind of evidence that this area really hasn't been well explored. And Snowline made their fabulous discovery in 2021. And again, another evidence that this area is really underexplored. They've been working on that for a while. So those claims, I think, have been in Ron Burdell's portfolio for 20 years. But I think there's going to be more discoveries in this belt, and we've got lots of land package here to do it. So yeah, big scale. And then looking at Powerline, that's 5 kilometers across of mineralization right on surface. It's not a complicated deposit, very consistent. And there's airstrip. It looks small compared to Powerline because we really just haven't got back to drilling it, but higher grade. And yeah, it's still open. Lots of room to grow it there. And as this is, the deepest part of the pit is 200 meters. We'll look underneath it here in just a second. So low strip ratio, and you see that in the sections. There's high grade in some areas right near surface, which is kind of what you're looking for your starter pits. So let's look underneath at just kind of what the deposit looks like. So there you go. There's the sheeted veins of Powerline. The gray is the $1,800 pit shell that we use to constrain the resource. And here's the airstrip deposit. And you can kind of see it. It's a calcareous replacement deposit, but it dips at about 60 degrees. So if we drill deep, and we have drilled one deep hole in Powerline, we did that to support some of the work that we're doing to understand the temperature gradients within the deposit. We're doing some work with the University of Calgary, looking at some of the graphite thermometry, looking at the high temperature minerals to understand potential heat flow directions, which might give us an indication of where the intrusion is. And this was a very long-lived system. If you look at some of the experts like Craig Hart that have these intrusion-related systems, remember, we're in the meta-sediments that are above or around the intrusion. And how do we know it's an intrusion-related deposit? Well, because of the gold bismuth and tellurium ratios really indicate that it's likely intrusion related. We see these sheeted veins in Powerline in the meta-sedimentary unit. Where did they come from? And that's a question we ask for. So we are doing a little bit of background science to work on that, but this is a very large system, and the experts, they used to have the diagram that above an intrusion you'd maybe have a 1 kilometer mineralized area. Well, they've had to expand that to 5 kilometers now because ours is 5 kilometers. So it's very interesting. So the point of the deep hole, getting a bit off topic, is that we've drilled to 650 meters vertically and it was mineralized, and we didn't necessarily drill that in our highest grade area. But these types of deposits, once you start getting mining a 7 million ounce deposit, if there's more mineralization at depth, your lowest strip ratio actually goes to take that pit lower. And we do know there's some areas where we could probably drive the pit to 350 meters or more, where we see that higher grade going to the bottom of the pit. So lots of area, both laterally to expand the resource, but also at depth.
So when I see Powerline, I see this area in the center of it that is significantly higher grade with an average grade above 0.8 in certain areas. You've got a lot of 0.6 and 0.7 around there as well. And now you're also saying that there's areas where if you drill deeper, you're also finding some, higher grades. Is that also in the center of the deposit, or is that laterally?
Yeah, some in the center, some over here in West Powerline as well. You can see some higher grade right at the lower part of the pit. That's a good kind of segue to go into the rest of this video here, where we actually show the cutoff grades, because we used a 0.3 cutoff because that gives you the largest number of ounces. So now our new resource, 7 million ounces, 0.63 average. Now this is your 4 million ounces of 1 gram. And what you're referring to is this area right here, which is hard to see in the 3D, but if you were to take slices through this, you would see. People say, well, there's 1 gram all over the deposit. Well, what we really need is 2 years or 3 years of 200,000 ounces a year. So let's say 400,000 to 600,000 ounces of plus 1 gram can you find that? Well, this is 4 million. So, so looking at the 0.6 cutoff, which also might be a mill grade, you know, if you eventually your mill grade will go down, depending on how long you run it, because it becomes more economic once you mine your high grade first to get your payback. So here we're looking at a 0.9 cutoff. So this would have a higher strip ratio if we were only mining this. But what I'm trying to make the point of is that same area where we have the +1 gram, boy, there's also a significant concentration of higher grade. So this is showing you 2.4 million ounces of 1.45. Again, this area in Powerline is pretty interesting. And actually you can see some of the area over here where the high grade is right at the bottom of the pit. So some of this work is really guiding us. We do have all the sections, north, south, and east, west, so that, you know, we can actually look at it and start to visualize this model. And of course, our software has it all in 3D, but it's hard to have that so it's interactive for people to look at. So, you know, we know it's open. We know we could connect off to the east. We know we can add ounces, and you know the story's been pretty quick. Discovery 2019, drilled out our first resource 2020. Now we're really doing the technical work to show that we have potentially an economic project. Metallurgy, baseline, environmental, all the things that you need to do to move it forward. We will do a PEA before December of 2025, but I think a lot of value will be generated in the ramp up to that PEA. And that's what we're very, very focused on. You know, a lot of people, there are a lot of investors who wait for the PEA, but there's an awful lot that will, you know, start to see that as one, we get the story out, you know, just because you put out a news release, there's so much news out there. I found even some of our shareholders hadn't actually read or interpreted what the metallurgy or our resource really meant. So, you know, getting out and talking to people is really important, and showing this slide, you know, we've got all the boxes ticked, size and scale, permitting, roads and power already on the process, already on the property, 2 mines beside us and growing. You know, it's pretty interesting district. And I'll show you that there's just our overview of our program, which I talked about. You know, we're very targeted in what we're doing this year. I'm a big shareholder, remember, 4% shareholder who's bought in the market. I worked out my average price. I think it's like 17 cents. It was tax time, you know, had to figure out some of these things. So I'm not, you know, I, as a third CEO, had to actually buy in the market. And I'm not in this for just a double. I'm in this for a lot more than that personally. So, you know, have we added value for our shareholders? Absolutely. 120,000 meters that we've drilled, we've added 58 ounces for every meter we drilled, or $7 per ounce in exploration cost. So, you know, you can see how exponential our resource growth has been and the value add. And yeah, maybe it's not appreciated in this market yet, but I think it's going to be pretty compelling as some of the majors go shopping, or as people start to look at gold projects that get developed. I've got the team coming together now to really be able to move this project forward in the next phase. And as we grow, you know, that's what you do. You continue to change your team and your thoughts to really figure out what the next phases are to add value for our shareholders. Great shareholders. You know, as I said, I'm 4%, Fidelity and Franklin at 7.4 and 9.8, Victoria Gold at 11.3, still room for another corporate. So, you know, that's not a 20% position, which is sometimes can scare off other corporates and investors. Still a pretty strong treasury. We started this year with 7 million. We made $700,000 in revenue last year. We're on track to make somewhere above that, probably closer to $1 million to $1.5 million, which, you know, is a huge advantage for us. People look at juniors and think they're just, you know, running out of every bit of time, they're running out of more money. Well, because we've got significant revenue, we've been clever in how we've managed to get that locked in, as well as manage our costs. We still have a strong treasury for this year. We've got enough money to execute our program and let the market actually start to pay attention to some of these juniors before we need to raise money. And I know that's always an issue. People are like, oh, juniors are always going to raise money. Well, I'm a big shareholder, so I care at what price we raise it. And I'm pretty confident in the program we have for this year. It's going to add a lot of value. There's a team, you know, we've got the right team. We've got technical mining engineering expertise. We've got some people that have built mines and done metallurgy. We've got capital markets and legal, permitting, a small team, but a really focused and dedicated team. Our analysts have started to pick up some of the economics, and particularly Paradigm. If you look, they've actually done some pre-economic modeling, and they're well known for doing kind of PEA level analysis of companies. So I think they're working away on that. So, their price target's at 85 cents in a dollar. But Paradigm, is really doing the work to show and back up what the economics are. So I think that'll be coming. I think we might be picking up some other analysts because we're starting to get some real attention. Cormark also has been covering us. I haven't seen anything on the modeling from them yet, but certainly we're following up to get our analysts actually taking a look at what we're doing. Lots of retail interest. Interesting, and if you check out the volumes we've had in the last few days, I do think we're seeing retail buying. We've had our general average volume for quite a long time was like 150,000 shares per day, and we've had some 750,000 share per day or more recently. So that does, while our price hasn't quite started to pick up, I think we are seeing some strong interest as we get the story out. Remember, we did our last financing back in 2020 with a back end price of 40 cents, and before that 45. So lots of ability for us to re-rate and add value with what we're doing. We're currently at about $10 per ounce. A lot of our peers at this stage are at $33 per ounce. And take out in the Yukon, if you look at Underworld and Kamenak, were what, 170 and $250 per ounce. So you look at the value in there, and that was at a much lower gold price than we have today. When juniors do re-rate, I think it's going to be the ones that have quality assets that can be moved forward quickly, which will re-rate fastest and theoretically the most. I don't know if you want me to go through the rest or you have some more
Yeah,
questions for
no,
me.
I got a lot of questions. The revenue, where's the revenue come from?
We rent out some of our extra space that we have in our camps. We do a few other services as well, both geology, report writing, but it's really our camp rentals that are the biggest.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Okay. I noticed the zero warrants that really stands out
Yep.
to me. That's that's important. It takes a bit of a overhang off the stock. So when you do hit some of these key milestones over the next year and show some real value drivers, you can get that re-rate as you mentioned. Going back to the drilling at Powerline, how many meters,
Yep.
how many holes do you estimate you will drill at Powerline to sort of high grade that core? And what is your, you know, ballpark of how large that higher grade core is there, like the starter pit?
Sure. Well, we already have some infill holes in Powerline, and some of these are, pretty close to some of the higher grade areas that we have. So, what we need to find is areas or area where you've got, or volume where you've got that higher grade that can be mined and strip ratio. So it's a bit of a complex calculation. We have our drill plan today, which is numerous iterations into it, and we are still refining it. So we've got a couple weeks before we're launching into the field. So I'm not going to pinpoint holes quite yet because I always like to have a couple more runs at it, give it a little time to think about it, and then come back and look at it. But a good portion will be focused on both showing the potential resource expansion without bothering to drill it out. People, if you have mineralization, we know there's mineralization out here. We know we could drill holes to connect it. You can see in the sections it's still open down here, open over to the west. I don't think you really need to drill it all out to show that. The higher grade areas clearly right in here, but also airstrip, and if our theories on airstrip are well founded, then we might very well allocate additional holes there because 0.75 average grade, you drill a few more areas where you get some more of that 1 gram material, you can change the grade and where your starter pit is pretty quickly. So so we do adapt our drill plan in the field. So this year we're not going to put out, here's our drill plan, because it's going to be a bit fluid. We look at every single hole, evaluate it before we launch onto new holes. And that's really important, I think, to have that knowledge of your deposit and be look. I hate companies that just go, here's our drill plan, and then they go drill it and nobody's like thinking about it in the field. That to me is a really important thing for our team.
Oh yeah, that's good to know, and that makes a lot of sense. One of the things that I've heard from some other investors in the last couple of months is they're of the opinion that, well, Banyan is just going to flatline around 32 cents for a while until we hit some milestones or they do a financing, because some people are expecting a financing. But I look, you have 7 million in the treasury, 5,000 meter drill program. I mean, I don't know what the budget is exactly, but I would estimate it's a couple $1 million. It's not going to blow your entire treasury.
No.
Um, so you can, I mean, I know you could make it to the end of the year if you had to without a financing. What are your thoughts on that feedback that, I've received about the share price and, the financing?
Well, I hear it too, and I guess, I put my money where my mouth is in terms of I would buy stock in the market right now because I don't intend to finance at this price. My last financing was at 40 cents, no warrants. Do I do big dilutive warrant heavy financings? No. Have I done that in the last 3 financings you see here? No. The last one was at 40 cents. Do I think I can add value for our shareholders this year and get us out of 32 cents? Yes, I do. And no, we're not going to run out of money. We manage our treasury very, very well. We haven't financed since 2022, and we still have, we had 7 million at the end of the year, and we don't have that fast of a burn rate. And we're planning our budget, so we have roughly $3 million left at the end of the year, which is actually enough G&A for all of 2025 if we weren't to do something. So I really want to add some more value, get some drill results out there, and demonstrate the economics. I think there's a lot of big fish out there looking for places to get in on what will be the re-rate in gold stocks that have quality. I think it's coming. It's partly a little bit of patience, that just because the gold price goes up, that doesn't mean it translates instantly into the gold companies. And quite frankly, there are some companies that haven't been well run or don't have projects which are likely to move forward. If you don't have at least the potential for 1 million ounces, you probably don't have a real project. So there will be some gold companies that aren't able to benefit from the increase in gold price because either the project's not there or the management's not there, which I think are two key things in investment. So yeah, that's always there. And I guess people have to say, well, what is management going to do? Yeah, I'm going to add some more value before I finance because I know I've got my big shareholders there. All of my financings are done from within my existing shareholders first. It's very unlike me to go out to retail specifically and try to do a financing because that's a really tough way to finance unless you've got your lead orders lined up. You look out there at some of these life financings that are being done with it's tough.
It's very
And
tough.
I know it.
It's very tough. Do you want to build a mine? And if you do, what do you have concerns about power? Because I know in the
Yeah.
Yukon, the power grid or lack of power infrastructure is a big knock on the territory. Because obviously you need power to run a big gold mine. So, two questions. Do you want to build a mine? And what's the situation with the power?
I would like this to be a mine. I don't, whether I'm building it, or a team that I've built and handed the baton to is building it, doesn't really matter to me. I think leaving a legacy of a project that actually moves forward is a pretty big win, and leaving some happy shareholders. So that's more motivates me than and leaving a positive legacy for this community, which I think this project would do and can do. So that definitely does drive me. And then power. Well, there's maybe not enough power in the grid for full year of operations. So the Yukon has two hydro facilities. One is 50 kilometers from AurMac and connected with that brand new power line that was built back in January 2021. So the power line has capacity for another mine. It serves two mine. And then that is connected to the broader Yukon grid. And then there's another hydro dam down in Whitehorse. And then there's some other power generation and another smaller hydro facility, which all kind of feed into that grid. So the Yukon, just like every other jurisdiction, has been encouraging everybody to convert to electric heat, electric cars, and meanwhile, and yes, we have some mines. Meanwhile, they haven't increased the power supply to the grid. So the Yukon's problem is a lot bigger than mines. It is for the whole community that they've now encouraged to get electrified. So Yukon's going to have to solve the problem. There is talk with the territorial government. They're talking with BC and the federal government about starting to connect to the BC grid and into the broader grid so that they can get, if you get the Canadian power grids connected, then at least you can share the power when there's surplus in different areas. But there's also the potential to, it's a little out there, but Banyan could actually put in a power facility and sell back into the grid because they're burning diesel and LNG. Maybe if you put in a facility where you've already got a power line, there's opportunity to look at that sort of thing. But I do think the Yukon's going to have to solve the problem. There is opportunity at both of the hydro dams to increase the power. They're looking at some battery storage options. But ultimately, they need to get a large generating source somewhere in there. And it's going to be a political issue. And we've got elections coming up federally in Canada and territorially. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that as an issue that doesn't get some money, because it's going to be very topical for people. You can't run out of power in the main capital of the Yukon or have brownouts. It's going to be an issue that people are going to make the government solve, and that will be good for us. And maybe the mines are part of that. If Western Copper needs an awful lot of power, they've got Rio Tinto there. If that project goes ahead, it certainly will require a power solution, and I think they would be looking for something that benefits the broader community as well. So I think there's a few things afoot there, and there are solutions. Most mines always have their own power generation on site as well, at least to run all their essential operations. Because even if you're on the grid, you need to make sure that you've got power in the event that the grid goes down, right? So it's not like you wouldn't be putting in some power into the site anyway.
Exactly. Final question. A lot of people are really interested about this intrusion and finding the intrusion. So when are you going to find the intrusion, Tara?
Well, we're working on it. We think about it, and we've certainly engaged with some experts in some of the work that we're doing on that. We allocate a bit of our time to that, but I remind people we think we have an economic project in the rocks around it, and that we have now. And so it's all about how confident we are in our targets for that to spend the money, and it might be quite a lot of money to go after it. And that's always something that we can do. So we're working on it, Robert. We don't have the answers yet, but we have a few ideas.
All right. Thank you. This was a wonderful conversation. I learned a few things. Just my thoughts out there, and obviously my opinion doesn't really matter, but my thoughts are Banyan has been a laggard for the last 6 months or so, and that's about to change, both due to seasonality and both to the fact that you're going to be hitting some key milestones that will further advance the project and add value. And you mentioned that $10 per ounce number. That's absurdly low. And even if
It's,
we knocked it down from 7 million, let's say only 5 million is going to be mined, still that's very low because $30 an ounce should be kind of a floor. So that would still be 150 million. And I'm talking about the real dollars, not the ones in Canada, right? So uh, that basically infers a potential double. Okay, this is not investment advice, but that's the way that I view the opportunity here. And by golly, if you make some new discoveries, um, if you hit some more key milestones and get to the feasibility stage, if the gold price goes even more bonkers to 3,000, then that's all gravy, right? And that could be more than a double. So I'm talking my book. I like it here at this share price, and I like the timing of this. Back in October, I didn't like it as much because I know you're going to have 6 months of slow news flow, and generally in a tough environment, that's not going to be a higher share price. That's not a formula for a higher share price, and that's just being honest. But now this is a different
yeah.
story. Here we are in April. You're going to hit the field in May. You're going to drill throughout the summer. You're going to put together some key milestones. You're going to bring out a PEA to the market early next year, and hopefully that PEA is going to show a significantly higher valuation than your current market cap.
Yeah, I guess commenting on that PEA, Robert, we have to do it by December. I'm waiting until I actually, one, see the numbers that I want to see. So, I want to see a more than adequate IRR and also a little bit of a market that appreciates it. If you look, a lot of the lead up in share prices is really actually pre-PEA. That's if you look at the history, and actually Paradigm wrote a report on it that said that most of the value appreciation is from where we are right now until people actually publish that. So there's people that wait for the PEA, and there are lots of people that also are going and evaluating it as they go along. People that have more technical expertise. So I think it is a really exciting time, and we've worked so hard the last 5 years. And I look at how we're now positioned in this gold market, and it excites me. I'm pretty excited about the trajectory for Banyan and our ability to add value this year. So, and everything around us is going in the right direction. New discoveries, exciting jurisdiction, gold price, fuels even, kind of come back from its astronomical prices for a while. So there's lots of things going in our favor. So appreciate your conversation today, Robert, and questions. And I look forward to coming back to answer the more hard questions and hopefully with some answers for you.
Very good. Thank you for your time, Tara.